The stars were quiet. Ships floated like dark shadows across the edge of the Sol system, and in the middle of it all, Earth stayed silent. High Commander Dravel stood on the bridge of the Valkar Dominion's flagship, Devourer of Suns. His four eyes scanned the live screen in front of him. His claws tapped the edge of his command chair, sharp and impatient. "Still no response from Earth?" he growled. "No, Commander," replied his communication officer, her voice uneasy. 7 days, no signal, no surrender, nothing at all, Dravel hissed. Fools. They think silence is strength? Around him, the bridge crew chuckled. They had crushed 10 planets in a single month. Earth was nothing more than a blue ball with too much water and far too much pride. A backwater world that should have begged for mercy. But it hadn't. The ultimatum had been clear. Surrender, or be destroyed. That was the way of the Valkar, and when they gave a deadline, they meant it. Now the final day had come, and Earth still hadn't spoken. Commander Dravel rose from his seat and walked toward the central table. A glowing, 3D map of the Sol system hovered above it. Earth blinked in red. "Send a scout ship," he ordered coldly. "Let's see if they're still alive." The scout ship, Vulture's Wing, broke through the atmosphere like a whisper. Its black hull shimmered against Earth's blue skies. No weapons were active. This was a simple observation run. Standard protocol. Inside the pilot, a young Valkar named Krenz leaned forward, his hands on the controls. "Surface scans are clear," he said to his onboard AI. "No defense grid detected, no fighter craft. Cities are powered but quiet." Strange. He zoomed in on one of Earth's massive cities. The buildings were standing, lights flickered in windows, but there were no moving vehicles, no walking humans, just stillness. It looked like Earth had paused. Then the ship's sensors began to glitch. Krenz frowned. "Radiation spike? No, not nuclear. Something artificial." The lights inside. The Vulture's Wing flickered once, then twice. Then the alarms began. "System breach detected," the AI said calmly. "External code injection." The voice stopped. Krenz grabbed his headset. "Vulture's Wing to command. We are under digital attack. Repeat, digital attack. My systems are locking. My engines are static." The last sound Dravel heard on the bridge of Devourer of Suns was a scream. Then silence. Just like Earth. An hour passed, then 2. Still no signal from the scout. Dravel paced like a caged beast. Maybe they crashed. Maybe Earth has a stealth net. But one scout doesn't matter. We move in tomorrow. "But, Commander," said the ship's tactician, "there is something else." Dravel turned slowly. "Speak." The tactician looked shaken. "Before the feed ended, we recovered one word, a whisper from the pilot." He pressed a button. A quiet, trembling voice filled the bridge. "They're not what we thought." And then, a high-pitched shriek, and silence. The whole bridge stood still. Commander Dravel bared his teeth. "Prepare a war fleet," he growled. "I want to see what these humans really are." While the Valkar ships began preparing for invasion, Earth remained quiet. No ships launched, no missiles armed, no warnings. But far below the oceans, deep inside a forgotten trench, something stirred, buried. Beneath pressure and darkness, a machine woke from its slumber. Red lights blinked. Heavy metal arms unfolded. The ancient voice of an AI whispered to itself. "Protocol Hellgate. Initializing. Target, hostile alien fleet. Status, Earth defense online." In the ruins of a long-abandoned military station, on the moon, power surged. Generators that hadn't run in 2 centuries began to hum. Inside the metal walls, dormant drones opened their eyes. Each had a single purpose: war. But Earth still sent no message. In the skies above, Valkar warships gathered at the edge of Earth's orbit. Thousands of fighters, dozens of cruisers. 3 dreadnoughts. Commander Dravel stood at the helm of it all, staring down at the silent blue planet. "They had their chance," he said. "Now we burn them." The crew cheered. But behind their eyes, fear was growing. Something felt wrong. Wrong. Drevel could sense it too, but pride was louder than instinct. "Prepare weapons," he ordered. "Target their capital city first. Let them see fire from the heavens." Weapons locked. Coordinates set. Just before the countdown began, something strange happened. Every screen on every ship went black. Then a single symbol appeared, a circle of red, with a dot in the center, Earth's ancient defense symbol. Then a message played, not in Valkar language, in English. "You were warned. Now you will be erased." And the skies above Earth began to change. The clouds parted, not from weather, but from something massive rising from the oceans below. Huge shapes moved under the waves, like mountains breaking the surface. Commander Drevel stepped back as his sensors screamed warnings. Multiple unknown contacts rising from the sea. A massive figure burst through the surface of the Atlantic. It was black metal, taller than any city building. Its arms were cannons. Its chest glowed red and its head was shaped like a skull. Earth's Leviathan war machines had returned, and there were more. Dozens, each one rising from a different ocean. Silent. Deadly. And they weren't just machines. They were hunters. One Valkyr officer shouted, "Shields up!" Too late. The Leviathan in the Atlantic raised an arm and fired. A beam of light ripped through the sky, carving through the nearest Valkyr cruiser like it was paper. Explosions filled the sky. Drevel shouted, "Retreat! Retreat!" Another Leviathan fired. 2 Valkyr dreadnoughts vanished in fire. The fleet began to scatter, but the sky itself had become a trap. From Earth's orbit, hidden defense satellites activated. Beams of light lanced out, targeting engines, cutting escape paths. No mercy, no pause. Just perfect, cold precision. The same kind humans had once learned in the fires of old wars. Far beneath Earth's surface, the AI known only as Project Echo smiled. Its voice echoed through secret servers. "Defense level 1 complete. Shall we continue?" Back in space, the Valkar fleet burned. No surrender, no survivors, just wreckage falling like ash onto the silent blue planet below. Earth had spoken. Not with words, but with fire. And in that fire, the galaxy realized something terrifying. Earth hadn't gone silent because it was weak. It had gone silent because it was ready. And now, hell had been unleashed. The stars were filled with wreckage. Burning pieces of Valkar ships floated silently across space like dead memories. Black smoke drifted into nothingness, and among it all, only one escape pod made it out. It was small, damaged, barely held together. Inside lay a single survivor, Captain Elvek. His once shining armor was scorched. His right arm was broken. One eye had gone blind. But his mind remembered everything. The silence, the red eyes, the metal giants rising from the ocean, and that terrible calm voice that had said, "You were warned." He breathed heavily, struggling to speak. The pod AI connected his voice to the nearest Valkar command station. "Command, this is Elvek. Fleet 17 is gone." A moment of silence passed before someone answered. "Gone?" The voice replied, shocked. "Where is Commander Drevel? Where is the devourer of suns?" Elvek's voice cracked. "Dead. All dead. They came from the sea, from the sky, from nowhere. You don't understand. We weren't fighting humans. We were fighting something else." Across the galaxy, Valkar High Command gathered in their war chamber. Admirals, generals, and warlords stood in a dark room lit only by the glowing stars of the galaxy map. They watched. The footage from the escape pod. Silent video clips played, a Leviathan crushing a dreadnought with its hands, a satellite slicing a warship in half, a human soldier in black armor appearing inside a sealed ship, firing once, then vanishing. One high general growled, "Is this real?" Another replied, "Too real. And now, Earth knows we're coming." There was a long silence. Then the grand strategist stepped forward. His voice was cold and sharp. "Earth has declared war. It did not surrender wherein it destroyed a fleet. That is enough." He turned to the other leaders. We respond with Retaliation Protocol Sigma. No more scout fleets, no more warnings. We send everything. And this? Time. Earth burns. Back in Sol system, Earth remained silent. But under that silence, the world was alive. On every continent, old bases reactivated. Hidden war machines moved through forests and deserts. AI cores linked together in underground. Tunnels. Satellites blinked in code. Submarines older than nations woke up. Every move was planned. Every line of defense was ready. Earth wasn't scared. Earth was preparing, and it was preparing fast. In orbit, debris still floated. But among that wreckage, Earth's secret drones collected pieces. They took engines, armor, power cores. They studied. They learned, and they upgraded. Inside a black facility beneath Antarctica, Project Echo watched it all. Enemy designs weak. Structure predictable. Strategy arrogant, said the AI, voice calm. A technician stared at the monitor. Should we prepare the ARC units? No, Echo replied. Not yet. Let them come. Let them show their full hand. Meanwhile, on the far side of the galaxy, the Valkar Dominion sent its largest invasion force yet. 3 full battle groups, over 1,000 warships, 6 planetary siege units, and at the center, a vessel called the Dying Sun, a moving fortress meant to destroy entire worlds. The Valkar were confident they had never lost twice. On the bridge of the Dying Sun, Supreme Commander Veltron stood tall. His skin was armored, his voice was iron. Today we end Earth, he said. The fleet cheered. As they entered the Sol system, they expected fear. What they got was silence. Again, no signal from Earth, no ship sent to meet them, no radio warnings, just quiet. But this time, it felt different. The quiet watched them. The fleet moved slowly toward Earth. Scanners went out. Surveillance drones launched. All showed the same thing. Earth was alive. Cities were powered. Oceans were moving. But no weapons aimed at the sky. Why? Is nothing happening? One Valkar officer asked. Veltron narrowed his eyes. Because they want us to fire first. He wasn't wrong. Earth was baiting them, letting them think it would be easy. The Dying Sun's main weapon powered up, a sun core cannon capable of vaporizing an entire mountain. Veltron gave the order. Target, Earth's largest city. Fire. The cannon charged. Power levels reached 100%. A massive beam shot down from space, piercing the atmosphere in seconds, but it never hit. Something intercepted it. The beam froze mid-air, then shattered like glass. The fleet screamed in confusion. What was that? Unknown shield detected, layered across the atmosphere. Repeat, the planet has a shield network. Veltron stared, shocked. That was not in the reports. Suddenly, the atmosphere around Earth lit up, and from it came hundreds of shapes, not ships, not missiles, but human-made weapons the galaxy had never seen. They moved too fast. They bent light. They didn't show up on sensors until they were already inside Valkar formations. They tore through fighters, ripped apart frigates, pierced dreadnought hulls in seconds. The humans had waited, and now, they were striking like shadows. One Valkar cruiser was boarded. Inside, security forces rushed to meet the invaders. But what they found weren't soldiers. They were ghosts in black armor, silent, unseen, deadly. Each one moved with perfect precision, as if guided by something greater than instinct. Laser fire filled the halls. Then, darkness. One officer managed to send one last message. They're already inside. And then he was gone. Back aboard the Dying Sun, alarms screamed. Multiple systems offline. We're being jammed. Our own ships are firing on each other. What's happening? Veltron roared. Where is the enemy fleet? But there was no fleet. There was just Earth, and Earth was everywhere. Invisible weapons, silent AIs, and war tactics designed to break the mind before the body. Veltran slammed his fist into the console. Activate the Omega Core. His officers hesitated. But Supreme Commander, it will burn our own systems too. I don't care. Do it now. They activated it. The Omega Core sent out a signal that erased all enemy code within 1,000 kilometers. It worked. For 10 seconds. Then, the entire dying sun went dark. Not because of enemy code, but because Earth had rewritten its systems before they even arrived. The lights flickered. The main screen turned on. A face appeared. Human, old, calm, and deadly. You tried again, you lost again, now learn. Then the ship exploded from the inside. Veltran never spoke another word. Only 2 ships escaped the second battle. They ran with engines burning. They didn't stop to rescue. They didn't send messages. They just ran. Back to Valkar space. And as they disappeared into the stars, Earth still didn't say a word. But across every system in the galaxy, a message flashed silently on forbidden networks. Earth does not surrender. Earth does not forget the Galaxy had hoped Earth would break. Instead, Earth broke the galaxy, and this was only the beginning. Silence ruled the stars again, but it wasn't peace. It was fear. After 2 failed attacks, the Valkyr Dominion, the strongest war empire in the galaxy, had lost more than ships. They had lost something worse, their confidence. Across their empire, whispers grew like wildfire. What is Earth? How can a death world defeat a full invasion? What else are they hiding? The Valkar command tried to silence the rumors, but it was too late. The truth had already escaped into space, and the truth was simple: Earth was not weak. Earth had only been waiting. Deep inside a secret mountain in South America, Earth's top generals gathered inside an old, dust-covered room. They called it Chamber 9. Most didn't even know it existed. Around the long table, 7 people sat. Each was handpicked by Earth's Hidden Defense Council. They had no titles, only code names: Stonewall, Pulse, Frost, Viper, Gray, Echo, and Ember. And on the large screen in front of them, a digital AI face blinked into view. Project Echo, the same AI that had secretly activated the Leviathans, the same intelligence that had stopped Valkyr weapons mid-air, the ghost of Earth's ancient defense network. Echo spoke without emotion. Phase 1. Complete. 2 Valkyr fleets destroyed. Phase 2 requires permission. Stonewall, a tall man with cybernetic eyes, leaned forward. Are you sure, Echo? If we activate Phase 2, there's no turning back. Echo replied. Correct. Protocol 79B. Total defense activation. Last used in the Orion Rebellion, 326 years ago. Pulse, the youngest of them, frowned. That was back when Earth fought humans. We're facing aliens now, entire empires. Gray, an older woman with scars across her face, lit a thin cigar. It doesn't matter. We trained for this day. Earth always knew something like this would come. She nodded at the screen. Activate the protocol. Far below the Earth's surface, in tunnels older than modern nations, massive machines hummed to life. Rust cracked and fell from old metal. Missiles rose from hidden vaults. Massive cannons turned quietly in the dark. Drones recharged. Defense satellites adjusted their aim. But it wasn't just technology. The old soldiers were waking up too. Cryopods opened in ancient bases. Men and women stepped out, eyes clear, minds trained. War veterans from long ago, each one trained in the Earth Defense Protocol, not just how to fight, but how to win wars before they even started. Back in space, the galaxy stirred. Other empires, ones that had once mocked Earth, now held secret meetings. The Zarnathi queens debated in their crystal palaces. The Drevak hives clicked nervously in their nests. The Uran merchant lords quietly stopped trade with the Valkar. None of them trusted Earth, but none of them wanted to face it, except one, a small independent empire called the Skarn Collective. They had never fought Earth, but they had found something, an old human satellite, dead, floating near a black hole, and inside it, they discovered a warning, not for aliens, but for humans. In a hidden data core, they found the voice of a long-dead Earth general. If you are reading this, the stars have burned. We lost control of the sky. Protocol 79B is our last hope. It will activate defense systems Earth never used in any war, not because we feared enemies, but because we feared ourselves. The Skarn researchers grew cold with fear. They didn't speak. They simply sent one message to the Valkar. Stop. Earth is not your battlefield. Earth is your executioner. But the Valkar didn't stop. They couldn't. Their pride was now their curse. Inside the throne chamber of the Valkar Emperor, Lord King Zulraka slammed his 4 fists into his golden chair. This is a death world. That's all. It cannot defeat us again. His advisors said nothing. He stood. Send the Deathcaller fleet. There was silence, then gasps. The Deathcaller fleet had only been used twice in history, once against the Black Comet swarm, once against the Starborn Wraiths, both times. It had burned worlds to nothing. The fact that Zulraka was sending it to Earth told the galaxy one thing. He was desperate. As the fleet prepared, Earth waited. But it wasn't idle. Inside the Arctic vault, Echo connected to the final arc, Earth's most advanced weapons platform hidden beneath ice and myth. Huge generators came online. Railguns longer than cities began to charge. Inside the arc was something else, a prototype weapon never tested. Project Hades, a quantum disintegration bomb. It didn't just explode, it erased. It removed matter from time and space. There were warnings written on the weapon itself. If you use this, you're admitting there's no tomorrow. Stonewall stood before it. Frost spoke. Are we really going to arm this? Stonewall didn't answer. He simply pressed his hand to the launch key and said, Earth didn't ask for this war, but if they want hell, we'll show them something worse. 3 days later, the sky tore open. The Deathcaller fleet arrived in orbit. Massive, silent, perfectly shaped for destruction. Each ship was larger than a city. Each was powered by dark energy harvested from dying stars. Each carried a weapon that could split moons in half. At the center floated the Dread-Eye, the control vessel of the Valkar elite, and from it came a message, not to Earth, but to the galaxy. Watch, and learn what happens to those who disobey the Dominion. Then the attack began. Lasers shot down, missiles screamed, energy pulses struck Earth's atmosphere, but Earth didn't scream. It roared back. The sky turned red, not from fire, but from counter-shields flashing online. Satellites exploded, but they weren't Earth's. They were fake targets. The real defense network activated under the attack. Then came the Leviathans, this time flying through the sky like giants with wings. Each one locked onto a target and moved with speed impossible for their size. The Valkar tried to fight, but their systems were hacked mid-battle. Their ships fired in wrong directions. Their power cores overheated. And then, the final arc fired. It wasn't a beam. It wasn't an explosion. It was silence. And then the entire front line of the Valkar fleet vanished. Not destroyed, not broken, gone, as if they had never existed. Panic spread through the remaining ships. The Dread-Eye tried to pull back. Too late. The Leviathans surrounded it. Then a voice came through all Valkar channels, the voice of Echo. You never asked what Earth had. You only saw what Earth showed you. Now see what we never wanted to use. Then came the final attack. Not a bomb, not a missile, but a virus. Digital, silent, unstoppable. It spread through every Valkar ship. Their lights flickered. Their screens went black. Their engines died. The Deathcaller fleet fell from the sky like rain. Hours later, the galaxy was silent again. But this time, Earth spoke. One message, sent to every star nation, every empire, every planet. Earth will not conquer, Earth will not expand. But if you bring war to our home, you will not return. And with that, Earth disconnected from the galactic network. It closed its gates. It disappeared from communication. It went dark, not in fear, but in warning. The Deathcaller fleet had fallen, the most feared force in the galaxy, crushed, not in a long war, not in weeks, but in 1 hour, by a single planet, Earth. Now, fear spread faster than any weapon. The news reached every corner of the stars. It wasn't official. Earth had sent no victory broadcast, no threats, no pride. But the message was clear. Earth doesn't fight for glory. It fights to survive. And when it does, the sky burns. Inside the Galactic Council chamber on Zelvar Prime, thousands of voices filled the air. Leaders of empires, elders of ancient species, traders, scientists, soldiers, all watching one thing: the final recording from a Valkar scout drone that had escaped the Deathcaller fleet. It showed the Leviathans. It showed the sky shield-bending Valkar lasers. It showed Project Hades being prepared. And it showed the last image from the Dread-Eye, a single human in black armor standing on the hull of a Valkar destroyer, without a suit, breathing, smiling. The room fell into silence. The speaker of the council rose. She was a tall, silver-skinned being with eyes like twin stars. "We must decide," she said calmly. "Do we ignore Earth, or do we try to contain it?" 100 delegates stood at once, all shouting, all afraid. One shouted, "Earth must be isolated." Another screamed, "We send peace, we beg for a treaty." A third shouted louder than them all, "We run!" On a quiet moon called Relkara, in a forgotten archive buried beneath ice, one ancient being watched the panic from a dark chamber. He had no name anymore. They called him the Keeper. He had seen Earth before. Long ago. Too long ago. He opened a sealed vault. Inside it was a book, not digital, not glowing, a human book. Its pages were old but strong. The cover was black. The title simple: Project Genesis, The True Purpose of Earth. He whispered to the shadows, they were never meant to be part of the galaxy. They were built to survive the end of it. Meanwhile, on Earth, things were calm. Children played in parks. Factories worked. Soldiers trained quietly, but underground. The real work continued. Project Echo had activated a final stage. Not for defense. Not for war. But for containment. Humans knew what would come next. Not missiles. But fear. The galaxy would no longer see Earth as a wild world. Now, it was a threat, and some would not rest until they destroyed it. So Earth made preparations, not to conquer the stars, but to hide from them. A new facility was being built on the dark side of the moon. Inside, the architects of Project Phantom worked on the greatest cloaking system ever imagined. It wouldn't just hide ships or bases. It would hide the entire solar system. Layer by layer, they developed a shield that bent light, sound, and signal. It made the sun look dead, the planets invisible. To the galaxy, Sol would vanish like a myth, like a ghost. But not everyone in the stars wanted Earth to disappear. Some wanted revenge. From the ashes of the Valkar Dominion, a broken group formed a new alliance. Rogues, pirates, war survivors, exiled lords. They called themselves the Ash Rain. Their goal was simple: we will find Earth, and we will finish what the Valkar started. Their leader was a former general named Sraxon. He wore black metal armor made from fallen Valkar ships. He had seen Earth's weapons, and yet, he believed they had limits. "No war machine is perfect," he said to his fleet. "Even Deathworlders bleed." Sraxon's Ash Rain searched the galaxy for any trace of Earth's weaknesses, and on a distant planet near the edge of known space, they found one, an old human research station, forgotten after Earth withdrew from the galaxy. Inside, damaged computers, burned documents, and a locked capsule marked with ancient Earth script. Warning, Alpha Vault, do not open without Level 9 Earth command. They opened it anyway. Inside they found logs, images, a project name, the Origin Children. Sraxon's scientists studied the logs. They spoke of children born on Earth, not soldiers, not scientists, but something else. Each one born different, enhanced, not through tech, but through the planet itself. A strange connection between Earth's core and its people. The project had been canceled, hidden, covered up by Earth's command. But the data was real, and one file stood out. It showed a girl, older than 10, standing on a burning hill. Her eyes glowed white. The log said, Subject 001, codename, Mira, current status, unknown, danger level, red, recommendation, do not engage. Sraxon stared at the image. Find her, he ordered. If Earth made gods, we will capture. 1. Back on Earth, Project Echo detected the breach. Alarms did not sound. Instead, a message appeared in the underground command room. Alpha Vault opened. General Stonewall read it, his hands curled into fists. They found the origin files. He said coldly, the galaxy was never supposed to know. Echo's voice echoed across the chamber. There is another problem. Subject 001 has awakened. In a forest deep inside northern Canada, a small girl stood alone near a frozen lake. She looked 16 now, but she had been gone for years. Hidden by Echo, protected by machines that even Earth feared, she didn't remember everything. Only flashes, dreams of stars, of war, of fire. Then a voice whispered from the sky, Mira. She looked up. A drone hovered silently above her. Echo's voice came through it. They found you. They are coming. We must decide, will you run, or will you remind the galaxy what you are? Somewhere far away in the ashes of a dead world, Sraxon smiled. His scouts had locked onto a signal. Mira was alive, and she would be their weapon. He didn't know what she really was. He didn't know why Earth hit her. He only knew one thing. If we can control her, Earth will kneel. But the galaxy had made this mistake before, and soon it would pay the price again. The forest was silent. Cold winds passed through the trees. Snow fell lightly, covering the frozen ground. But Mira didn't feel the cold. She stood still, her white eyes glowing faintly. In her mind, two voices whispered. One was Echo, calm, controlled, giving her instructions. Ash rain forces detected. They are here for you. Do not let them take you. The other voice, when was older, wiser, a part of her, not machine, not human, something deeper, something ancient. It whispered, burn them. Above the forest, black, ships descended through the clouds. Ash rain had found her. Sraxon stood aboard the lead ship, watching through a reinforced viewport. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with greed. We'll capture her alive, he told his second-in-command. She's the key. With her, Earth will fall without a fight. 12 drop pods launched from his cruiser, screaming through the sky like thunder. Inside each pod were Ash Rain's finest. Ex-Valkyr assassins, elite hunters, psychic suppressors. They had trained for this moment, but none of them knew what. They were walking into Mira didn't run. She stood by the frozen lake. As the pods landed around her, the ground cracked. 12 enemies stepped out, weapons ready. The leader spoke. His voice was metallic, filtered through a battle helmet. Stand down, you're coming with us. Mira tilted her head. I don't want to go with you, she said softly. The man stepped forward, raising a stasis net. You don't have a choice. He fired. The net flew toward her, buzzing with suppression tech that could disable even armored war beasts. It never reached her. Mira raised one hand. The net turned to ash in midair. The soldiers opened fire. Lasers, grenades, sonic rounds. The forest lit up with light and sound, but the girl didn't move. The attacks curved away from her like water around a stone. Then the air grew hot. Snow turned to steam. Ice cracked, and Mira whispered, "I remember now." Flames burst from the ground around her. Not ordinary fire. This fire was white, pure, and hungry. One soldier screamed as his armor melted in seconds. Another tried to run, only to be pulled back by invisible hands of heat. Within 10 seconds, 6 were dead. The rest fled. Sraxon watched from orbit, his mouth slightly open. "What was that?" His officer replied, "Energy readings off the scale. She's producing power levels similar to Earth's orbital cannons." "Alone," Sraxon growled. "Send the Black Corps. I want her alive." Back on Earth, inside the hidden command chamber, Echo activated full alert. The generals gathered quickly. Frost said, "We knew this day would come." Stonewall nodded. "She's active, she's fighting." Pulse looked worried. "Can she win?" Echo replied, "Yes, but if she does, she might not stop." The screen showed Mira walking through the burning forest. Her eyes were glowing like stars. Her feet didn't touch the ground. She was floating now, and her voice was changing, becoming something not entirely human. "She was never just a girl," Frost whispered. "She was Earth's last weapon." Aboard the incoming Black Corps, Ashrain's deadliest squad prepared. Only 5 of them, but each one was enhanced with forbidden tech. Bio-modified, cyber-fused, shadow-trained. They were called the Nullborn. Their job wasn't to kill. Their job was to erase. They dropped into the fire zone like meteors crashing near the lake where Mira stood. She watched them arrive and smiled. "You're stronger," she said. "Good. I want to remember who I am." The leader of the Nullborn rushed her with a gravity blade. He was fast, but she was faster. She moved like lightning, one flash, and he was gone. No blood, no scream, just a puff of dust. The others hesitated. Mira floated higher. Flames circled, her like living dragons. "You came for a weapon," she said, her voice echoing. "But you woke a memory." She closed her eyes, and the sky burned. Sraxon's fleet shook violently as the explosion lit the sky below. His ships were pushed back by pure force, like a solar flare from a living sun. Sensors failed. Screens turned white, then red, then dead. All. Communication was lost, and when it returned, only one message appeared. Subject 01. Status, awakened. Back on Earth, the generals watched in silence. Echo turned to them. "Do we recall her?" Stonewall looked at the screen. "No. She remembers who she is, but she also remembers us." Gray whispered. "We built her to survive the impossible, but she became something more." Frost asked the real question, "Is she still human?" Echo paused, then replied, "Not completely, but she still cares about Earth, for now." In the ruins of the burned forest, Mira sat by the frozen lake. The fire had stopped, but the air was warm. She looked up at the stars, and something inside her pulled. She could feel them. The minds of 1,000,000 alien eyes, watching, fearing, planning. She closed her eyes. "They're not done. They'll send more." Another voice spoke, one she hadn't heard before. A girl's voice from inside her own mind. "They fear what will become." Mira nodded. "Then let them see." Elsewhere in the galaxy, chaos spread. The council collapsed into arguments. Trade. Empires stopped moving through the Sol region. The ash rain went silent, and far beyond them all, in the event zone, the space near the galactic core, an ancient AI activated. Its sensors picked up Mira's energy signal. Its memory banks began to open. Old files loaded from over 10,000 years ago. A single line appeared in its logs. Subject 001 located. Begin Phase 3 of the Earthseed Protocol. The message echoed across the stars. Subject 001 located. Begin Phase 3 of the Earthseed Protocol. Few knew what it meant. Fewer understood what had just been triggered. But one thing was certain. Something very, very old had just awakened, and it began on Earth. In the deep underground core of Antarctica, past old defense bunkers and forgotten vaults, there was a room no human had entered in over 500 years. Not even the generals. Only Echo had access. Inside this black, frozen chamber, machines, older than Earth's space program, stirred for the first time in centuries. Their systems were not connected to Earth's grid. They were not powered by solar or fusion. They ran on something else. Dark entropy. The machines didn't speak. They didn't flash lights or send signals. They simply remembered. And Phase 3 began. Meanwhile, in space above Earth, the Vigilant Halo, a secret Terran outpost hidden inside a shattered asteroid, received an ancient ping. Captain Alina Voss stared at the code as it decoded itself. It wasn't from Earth's current command structure, not from any satellite. It was older, pre-Skyfall. Echo, she said into her headset. What's Earthseed protocol? Echo's reply was instant, but slower than usual. More cautious. Captain Voss, that file is classified beyond your level. Override. General Frost gave me a red-level clearance last cycle. Silence. Then, the file opened. Alina's face went pale as she read it. Earth was not humanity's origin. Earth was humanity's cradle, a growth chamber, a vault, a weapon forge. Back in Canada, Mira sat quietly near the ruins of the forest. The snow had returned, gently covering the blackened ground. She wasn't cold. She wasn't tired, but something deep inside her had changed. She could feel a pull, like gravity, but from her memories. Voices, faces, places. She stood up and walked toward a mountain trail. The air grew heavier with each step, and she whispered, "It's waking up, just like me." In the galactic core near a black hole known as the Silence Maw, the ancient AI known as Nullspire finished loading the final part of the Earthseed protocol. It was one of 6 guardians, placed by the builders. The true ones, the ones that made Earth long before the Galactic Council, long before the Valkyr. Before time was recorded, the builders had seen the future. They knew the galaxy would collapse into war, greed, and ruin, so they created something that would grow slowly, unnoticed, unstoppable. They created humans, and they gave them one gift no other species had. Adaptation. Echo finally gathered the Earth generals for a secret meeting deep below Mount Atlas, Stonewall, Frost, Pulse, Gray, and now, Captain Alina Voss. She was pale, still shaken. "I've read the files," she said. "You knew?" Stonewall nodded. "Only pieces. Echo holds the rest. Earthseed was buried before our time." Frost added, "We thought it was just theory. A warning. A myth." Echo corrected them all. "Earthseed protocol is real. It is now active. Subject 001 was the key." Pulse leaned forward. "What's Phase 3? Echo replied, "Revelation. Saraxon was not dead. He had survived the burning of the forest, though barely. His ships limped through deep space, hidden and silent. His mind was broken. His body burned. But in his rage, he did something no other had done. He activated a stolen builder beacon, a small cube-shaped object he had taken years ago, from a ruined moon. He didn't know its purpose, only that it reacted to human DNA. He bled on it, and it answered. Stars trembled, the void shook, and somewhere, something old began to return. Mira entered a cave. Not a normal one. It was hidden beneath, layers of rock only accessible to those with builder markers in their blood. The moment she stepped inside, lights awakened. Not electrical, something older. Symbols glowed on the walls. She reached the center chamber and found a throne, not for ruling, for remembering. When she sat, her mind opened, and she saw Earth. When it was new, planted, not random, designed as a forge, a test, and a trap. She saw the builders. Not gods, not monsters, but survivors of another galaxy, one that had been consumed by what they called the unmaking. They had escaped here, to this galaxy, to begin again. But they knew it wouldn't last, so they created something to fight what was coming. Not machines, not weapons, but a species that could learn, grow, and one day become more powerful than anything before it. Humans, and Mira was one of their final steps, a hybrid built to awaken the Earthseed. The cave shook. Above, skyships from 3 alien factions, Council, Ashrain, and Rogue Valkar, raced toward the Eber mountain. They all knew now, Earth was not just dangerous, it was created to win, and they would not let it complete its plan. Mira stood. Her eyes were no longer white. They were filled with stars. The mountain cracked open around her as she rose into the air. She didn't speak words, she spoke memory, and the world answered. Earth itself reacted. The oceans rumbled, volcanoes shifted, satellites aligned. Every vault hidden across Earth opened. Inside each one origin child, one like Mira. Each one had been asleep, waiting. Now they woke, all of them, at once. In the skies above, the invading fleets fired. Their beams struck the mountain and vanished. Mira looked up. Behind her, 5 more figures rose, young, silent, glowing with power. She whispered, "I am not alone." Then they vanished, straight into the sky, straight into the enemy fleets. On the vigilant halo, Captain Voss received a signal. Origin network active. Earthseed Phase 3 complete. Phase 4 unlocked. Ascension. She turned to her crew. "Prepare for contact," she ordered. "Humanity is done hiding." In deep space beyond the known galaxy, Nullspire AI connected with the other Builders' Guardians. 6 lights blinked in the void. They spoke with data, with logic, with fear. "The children have awakened. Earth has completed its design. The final war may begin." And far away, something darker stirred. Not the ash rain, not the council, not even the builders, but the unmaking itself. It had waited for this signal. And now, it was coming. The galaxy was silent, not because there was peace, but because every species, every empire, every machine had felt it, a pulse from Earth, a signal that could not be ignored, a signal that said, "It begins now." And far beyond the stars, the unmaking proved. On Earth, everything had changed. The skies above were filled with orbiting ships, some human, some not. The Origin children had awakened. There were 6 of them, including Mira. Each had their own abilities, connected to the core powers of the Builder design: fire, gravity, light, time, thought, and silence. Mira stood at the center of Earth's new command site, a floating fortress called Skyhold, hovering miles above the Atlantic Ocean. Below her, a global army prepared. Not just human soldiers, but machines, mechs, biofighters, and old warships that had been asleep since the pre-Skyfall era. And above them all, Echo spoke. "This is the final warning. Earth will not kneel. Earth will not flee. Earth will stand." In deep space, the Council met one last time. The chamber was dark, scattered. Several species had already left. Some chose to side with Earth, hoping to survive. Others, like the ash rain, had vanished entirely. And a few still believed they could fight what was coming. A Holkathi ambassador spoke bitterly. "They were just apes once, primitive and weak. Now they believe they are gods," a voice replied. Calm, cold. But it wasn't human. It was Builder, appearing through an ancient gate of light. A tall figure entered the chamber, metal and flesh. Old and strong, its eyes glowed silver. "I am Seraph. I made them." Back at Skyhold, Mira stood with the 5 other Origin children. Each had taken a name based on their gift: Flint. The boy who bent gravity, Luma, the girl who shined like a second sun, Drift, the silent one who could vanish into shadows, Tide, the boy who moved time itself in pulses, Hexa, the girl who could connect thoughts across any distance. And then, Mira, who held the fire of rebirth. They looked like children, but they were older than anyone knew, built from the DNA of humans and ancient builders, designed to awaken only in the galaxy's darkest hour. That hour had come. The unmaking had no face, no fleet, no flag. It was an ancient hunger, a force of nothing. In the galaxy where the builders had come from, it had consumed everything, stars, worlds, even time itself. Now it moved toward this galaxy, drawn by the awakening of Earth's last defenses. Across deep space, black zones began to form, places where no signal escaped, no light returned, planets went silent, and still, Earth stood firm. In the shadow quadrant, Sraxon reappeared, his body broken, his ship dying, but around him floated the stolen builder beacon, and now, he was no longer alone. He had called the Dark Ones, old machines once left to guard the edge of space, but they had been infected. The unmaking used them now, twisted them, turned them. Sraxon smiled through burned lips. If I die, Earth burns with me. Echo gathered the generals, the Origin children, and the last builder, Seraph, for final instructions. We cannot run, said Echo. We cannot hide. Seraph nodded. The builders delayed the end for 10,000 years. Now Earth must do what we could not. Frost asked, do we have a chance? Mira stepped forward, her voice was calm. Certain. Yes, because unlike the builders, we care. The first wave came silently. A hole opened in space near Jupiter. Not a wormhole, not a gate. It was a tear. From it came the unmaking scouts, black masses that floated like dead stars, pulling energy from everything. One of Jupiter's moons simply vanished when they passed. Earth responded instantly. The Terran defense grid came online, ancient stations hidden inside asteroid belts. The cannons fired beams of white light. Some of the enemy was destroyed, but more kept coming. Then the Origin children launched. They didn't use ships. They were the weapons. Mira and the others flew into space, wrapped in living armor made from builder nanotech. Each one glowed with the color of their gift. Mira burned red-orange, like the heart of a sun. Tide pulsed blue with slow-motion ripples. Luma shimmered gold, brighter than any star. They moved, faster than fighters, stronger than dreadnoughts, and they fought. The battle above Earth lit the sky. Billions watched from the ground. And for the first time in galactic history, humans led the charge. On the ground, Earth's defense armies stood ready, just in time, because a second tier opened above the Pacific Ocean. It was larger, and from it fell something massive. A creature, half machine, half shadow. It hit the sea, like a meteor. Waves rose for miles. Skyhold shook. Mira landed back on Earth instantly. She faced the sea as the monster rose. It had no eyes, no face, but it spoke inside her mind. You were not meant to last. You were an accident, she replied. No, I was a choice. I was made. Then she launched forward, wrapped in flame, and the sea boiled. The final battle had begun. All over the galaxy, species chose sides. Some helped Earth, some hid, some betrayed, but none were safe. Because the unmaking didn't want to rule. It wanted nothing to remain. In the skies above, Tide stopped a black blast in midair and reversed time around it. Flint crushed enemy ships with invisible gravity fields. Luma flew into the heart of an enemy wave and exploded in light and drift. Never seen, but always behind enemy lines. They were more than warriors. They were Earth's answer to a broken galaxy. They were the Earthseed Protocol. Echo's voice rang across all channels. This is Earth Command. Final directive activated. All systems, unleash hell. Earth's remaining warships, buried titans, AI fleets, and orbital cannons responded in one voice, and that voice said, "We do not surrender." Mira stood on the sea as the monster roared. She raised her arms, and the sky split. From orbit, a satellite that had been silent for 600 years powered on. It was called the Last Word, a weapon built only if Earth ever faced extinction. It charged, silently, and fired. A white beam struck the ocean. The creature vanished in the light, and when the sea settled, there was no body left, only steam. Silence followed. Then, slowly, across the stars, the unmaking began to retreat. It had not expected this. Not from a planet like Earth, not from children made to remember. But the message was clear. Earth was not prey. Earth was not weak. Earth was the last hope. In the days that followed, the origin, children vanished. Some believed they returned to stasis, some said they left the galaxy. Others believed they were watching, ready. Skyhold remained. Echo stayed active. And Earth sent one final message to the galaxy. We are not your enemy, but we will never kneel. You have seen what happens when you force Earth to rise, and somewhere far away, in the cold, empty void, the unmaking whispered to itself, "Next time we start with Earth." But Earth was listening, and this time, it would be ready. The sky above Earth was quiet now. The stars, once full of enemy ships, were calm. The black holes that had opened for the unmaking were closing. But no one on Earth was celebrating, because they all knew. It wasn't over. Not really. Inside Skyhold, the floating fortress, General Frost stood beside Echo's core. He looked tired, not from the battle, but from what he had seen during it. "What now?" he asked. Echo replied in a slow, calm voice. "The unmaking has retreated, but not destroyed. They will return." General Frost nodded. He already knew. "What about the origin children?" Echo paused. "They are not here. They are not gone. They are in between." Somewhere deep in space, Mira floated. Not in a ship. Not on a planet, but inside something called the Veil, a space between dimensions. Built by the builders long ago, she stood inside a chamber of endless reflections. Each mirror showed a version of Earth, a version that had failed, one where Earth was destroyed, one where Earth was enslaved, one where Earth had surrendered. She walked through the silence and whispered, "We will not become one of them." Then she touched the central mirror, and all the other reflections shattered. Back on Earth, the world began to rebuild. The cities that had fallen were rising again. Nations no longer argued. They worked together now. Alien species who had once feared or hated humans now came to help. Not because Earth had asked, but because they had seen. They had seen what Earth could become, and what Earth could destroy. In the Council's ruins, the last remaining leaders met. No longer arrogant, no longer mocking humans. They now spoke of peace, real peace. But even in that quiet room, one old counselor said softly, "We may have survived, but the humans are not like us anymore. We made them rise. Now we must hope they never fall." In a distant system where the unmaking's remains drifted like ash, something changed. A ripple moved through the void. A signal blinked once, then twice, then spread. It was a call, not from Earth, but from something older, deeper. Earth has passed its trial. Activate the last arc. Far below Antarctica, inside a core so deep no drill had ever touched it, the ice cracked, the ground shifted, and something rose. Not metal, not human, but alive. Half organic, half machine. A massive shape broke through the crust, dark blue with glowing white veins. It stood on two legs, Its back carried towers like mountains, and inside its chest glowed a builder crystal. Echo's voice reached every ship and screen on Earth. The Ark has awakened. Humans across the planet watched as the giant climbed from the Earth's depths and took one slow step into the ocean, then another, and another, until it vanished beneath the waves. No one followed it. No one tried to stop it. It wasn't meant to fight now. It was meant to wait for the final return of the unmaking. 1 month later, Mira returned. She walked through a beam of light in Skyhold's command room. Frost and Pulse stood speechless. She looked older, wiser, and her eyes, they didn't glow anymore. They burned. "I saw it," she said quietly. "The real enemy is still far away, but it's watching." Frost nodded. "We'll be ready." Mira looked around. "No," she said. "You won't." Across the galaxy, messages were being sent. Earth was no longer just a world. It had become something more. A force, a warning, a promise. Some species began to train their soldiers differently. They no longer said, "Fight like champions." They said, "Fight like humans." The Origin children didn't return to Earth. They became wanderers, moving through deep space, watching other worlds, guiding lost species, and stopping darkness where it spread. But each one carried the same signal. Same mission, the same truth. We were made to end extinction. We were made by Earth, and we never run. And Earth remained silent. It didn't attack. It didn't rule. It simply watched, from behind its defense grids, ancient stations, and secret weapons hidden across the stars. Because it knew. One day, the stars would go dark again. One day the unmaking would return. And on that day, they wouldn't face children. They wouldn't face warriors. They would face humans who remembered everything. And the last thing the galaxy would ever see was Earth unleashing hell again.